Law nerds, we ride. We are called together for a special meeting of the law nerds in the matter of the conservatorship of Britney Spears and the wildness that has popped off in the last 24 hours. My browser, like my brain, has too many bands open, too many tabs open. There is so much happening today. We are just talking about Britney. Replay crew, I will break down exactly which documents we are talking about and timestamp them. Love you. Oh my goodness, so much is happening. And there's also a court hearing that should just be kicking off now, too. And I will try to keep an eye on that on Twitter as well. You guys know I love Britney Law Army on Twitter. They share what they can, but the court has been locking down people leaving court while the hearing goes on. So we normally get a download of information after court ends at 4:30 or thereabouts Pacific Standard Time. So, law nerds, I have so much water. This is my first of 2 live streams today. I will be over on Natalie Lawyer. These are way out of arm's reach. Girl, get it together. I will be live on Natalie Lawyer Chick's channel later this evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we're going to be talking about like the Cardi B of it all and other things. So, right now we are at pink. I feel like maybe we need DEFCON pink for Britney, but we might need to just go to DEFCON red because there is so much. There is so much. So grab a snack, grab something to drink. I will do my best to get to questions at the end. If I don't get to all the questions, pop them on social. I will be posting about this, put them in our members' spaces, and I will get to them on Friday because we're going to be talking more about this on Friday. Today, we are going through the court documents of it all. I will be doing an I Have Thoughts podcast for our Patreon members over there in the Law Nerds community at lawnerdsunite.com with my I Have Thoughts on Jamie Lynn Spears' interviews. I have not finished watching those yet, so I will be doing that shortly. I put up a poll in the chat. Let me see if I can see my poll. I think I just closed my chat. There it is. You guys wanted to start with Jamie Lynn's cease and desist. So we'll do that first. We're going to do a quick road so far. I should probably roll an intro. This is probably going to be the only time I say these things. If you're new here and you enjoy my content and you'd like to know the things, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you don't want to rely on YouTube for notifications and you're in North America, go ahead and join the text crew at textemily.com. I'm all over social at theemilydbaker.com. I think that's all I remember. We binged at some point to 194, like right after I finished our live yesterday. It's Wednesday, right? Yo, I'm just like, I need Dave Matthews tour dates to come out. Like Vuitton's dropping a new watch. Like my brain is fragmented. I haven't gotten to watch Real Housewives of Orange County yet because last night I was just reading all of these documents. It's hundreds of pages of documents. We're going to go over them in T order, meaning the juiciest stuff to like the legal stuff. And I should do a quick road so far. No, let's do the cease and desist and then we'll do a road so far. Emily, let's roll the intro and get started. Yes, Emily, let's do that.
Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery.
So, quick road so far with what's going on with the Jamie Lynn Spears cease and desist. And I will just give a reminder. I know that Jamie Lynn is a polarizing figure. I also have empathy for Jamie Lynn Spears. She was also raised by Yeeted Spears and Lynn Spears. And I listened to the beginning of the Call Her Daddy episode, and she was like, you know, Britney and Brian, the other 2 siblings, are both names that are BJ names, like Britney Jean and Brian, whatever, for James or something. And she was like, and then they named me Jamie Lynn. And then she was 10 years younger than Britney and kind of felt left out. And there are things I have empathy for because she was raised in a toxic environment as well. So I know there's a lot of like, hey, we hate Jamie Lynn. I get it, but also she had to grow up with these people too. So I don't love that none of the Spears kids seem to have parents. It all makes me tremendously sad. And the fighting between the siblings does make me very sad. The fighting playing out in the media makes me sad. But Jamie Lynn chose to write a book. She chose to share her experiences. She grew up with Britney. Those are part of her experiences. But what you can't do is defame and disparage someone. It doesn't matter if they're your sibling, what you can't do. So Britney is feeling some kind of way about Jamie Lynn. She's been sharing it all over social media. And well, I'm normally like a, go Britney, go Britney, go. Some of the posts where she's talking about smacking her 12-year-old sister, I'm like, look, I get it. But 12-year-olds are also difficult humans to interact with. And I think that Jamie Lynn feels kind of betrayed by Britney, and Britney feels betrayed by Jamie Lynn. And there's a lot of healing that needs to happen with these two. So in all of that, what you can't do is defame people. And it seems that that's the direction that Britney and her legal team feels that this is going in or could be going in. So these are complex things. Like, two things can be true at once. Like, it's clear to me that Jamie Lynn grew up in a toxic environment just like Britney did, but also Jamie Lynn is now an adult and needs to be responsible for her actions. So these two things I hold in my mind at once. There are things I don't love and there are things I have empathy for. So that's where we're at. I think that everyone needs some therapy. I think everyone needs to detach, and I think I hope that the sisters are able to resolve things, but I don't think until Jamie Lynn stops talking about Britney, that's going to happen. Because I can understand Britney being like, everyone has made money off of me. Everyone is talking about me. Can you all get my name out of my mouth and let me live my life? Like, I get that too. And Britney has a right to privacy just as much as Jamie Lynn has a right to share her story. And I don't know how Jamie Lynn shares her story without talking about Britney, but I also think there's a way to maybe do this better. There's a way that maybe this could have been timed better. And Jamie Lynn is still working with Lou Taylor, which is a choice. And it's a choice I don't like personally. Like, it's a choice that makes me feel really icky, especially after all of these court documents. And so I feel like if Jamie Lynn maybe can get away from some of those influences, then maybe we can start to see some healing. Because I don't think it's just Britney and Jamie that are at odds. I think there's people around them that don't support that, maybe don't support a healthy healing. So let us talk about page six's article. And again, with Jamie Lynn, the adults she makes as an adult, I will definitely look at differently than the choices she made as a child in a toxic household. That's where I'm at parsing this out. So let's go to what page 6 had to say about this. They're the one who broke the exclusive. They're the one that attached the actual cease and desist in their article. And I shared this on Instagram as well. Oh, I should end that poll. Hold on. Y'all. Told you it's going to be wild. Let's end this poll because you don't even know what's coming in these court filings. Y'all are in for a ride today. When I said we might get to questions, we are in for a ride today. I've read these. The cease and desist is the least shocking of all the things we're going to talk about today. Britney Spears is demanding her sister Jamie Lynn Spears keep her name out of her her mouth is what this is. And really it's, well, we'll get to what the court the actual cease and desist says. Britney asked her high-powered attorney Rosengart to enter the fray. Britney 40 has issued a forceful, that's true, cease and desist letter exclusively obtained by page 6 to her younger sibling. I'm not going to break down what they say that the letter says. We're just going to go to the letter because the letter is more important. We all know Rosengart. Hello, Rosengart. I hope he's wearing a pink tie in court today. I'm sure we'll see a photo. Let us just talk about this. They say in a follow-up message, Britney explained that she loved Jamie Lynn unconditionally, though she is still processing pain from what she sees as her sister's lack of action to help her end the conservatorship. Even after Jamie Lynn asked Britney to address their feud privately over the phone, the former Zoe 101 star appeared on Call Her Daddy to air more private moments from the pop icon's life. Fair. Let's air it privately. I'm going to go on a massive fucking podcast and talk about it. To be fair, the podcast could have recorded before, but she knew that airing was coming. Like, it's not a surprise to her. So let us talk about this this cease and desist. If it looks a little fuzzy, I get it. It's an image from page 6. So the fuzziness is not on my end. I see the fuzziness too. The fuzziness is from page 6. This is the cease and desist letter, things I should have said. Dear Miss Spears, as you know, I represent your, I love that it's as you know. We all know Rosengart. We know. And we are here for it. Again, lawsuits are allegations. Cease and desist are not lawsuits. They are putting you on notice. They are, oh, by the way, knock it the fuck off before I come for you in court. That is what a cease and desist is. You can quote me on that. What is a cease and desist? Oh, it means knock it the fuck off before I have to sue you. Yes. The formal get my name out of your mouth. As you know, I represent your sister Britney Spears, and I write at her request concerning the above referenced matter. Your book. We write with some hesitation because the last thing Britney wants is to bring more attention to your ill-timed book. Fair. And its misleading or outrageous claims about her. I wish this said and or. It's misleading and or outrageous. Outrageous. When I'm on my body. Outrageous. I am in a mood today. Y'all, I have my Britney shirt on. I am having a whole ass moment. But I wish it said and or outrageous claims about her. Although Britney has not read and does not intend to read your book. Here's a little shade as well. We find your comments to be misleading and outrageous, but we will not be reading your book because, you know, yeet. Although Britney, and it's probably best for Britney's mental health that she doesn't read the book. Britney, I hope that Britney just gives the book to her therapist and be like, this is how my sister interprets us growing up. Can we talk about how I feel about growing up? And then start processing what they are going to have to process of the children of an alcoholic, and according to these newest court documents, an abusive alcoholic at that, is a lot. And both of them and their brother are going to have to process that. And I do have empathy for that, even though I don't like some of the other actions. So 2 things true at once. Britney, she and her millions of fans were shocked to see how you have exploited her for monetary gain. She will not tolerate it, nor should she. Fair. You of all people know. Also fair. The abuse and wrongdoing Britney had to endure during the conservatorship. I understand that's Rosengart's position. I don't know how much Jamie Lynn stuck her head in the sand and went into survival mode. Like, I don't know. I don't know how much Jamie did what she needed to do to survive. I'm not excusing making money off of her sister's name. I'm just wondering if Jamie knew everything or if Jamie was surviving. I don't know. But anyway, you of all people know the abuse and wrongdoing Britney had to endure during the conservatorship. I mean, that's fair. After initially growing up with a, quote, ruinous alcoholic father. And I think that we can assume that Jamie Lynn could extrapolate based on her own experiences with her dad, that having your dad in charge when she knew what her dad was like, that she could extrapolate how bad that would be. And Britney definitely had it worse. You know, I don't think that Jamie Lynn didn't have it bad as well. In fact, your own book repeatedly states that your father spent most of my life in a cycle of ruinous behavior. His bouts of drinking caused me periods of torment and sorrow. And guess who spent 13 years, well, more, 40 years in that cycle of torment and sorrow? As I have previously stated, having endured a 13-year conservatorship and stripped her of civil rights and fundamental liberties, Britney will no longer be bullied by her father or anyone else. And I wonder if Britney sees this as team conservatorship doing this. Did the book deal get procured by Lou Taylor? Who orchestrated the book deal? Did Jamie Lynn seek this out? Or is this those that have harmed Britney trying again to make money off of Britney's name? Does Lou Taylor, as the talent manager for Lynn Spears, profit off of this book? I think so. I think so. She would probably get a percentage, especially if she put the deal together. So could this also be Jamie Lynn not standing up to say no, and Jamie Lynn being told you're writing the book, and Jamie Lynn being like, we're going to do what we're going to do. But Jamie Lynn's an adult now, and she can put her foot down and say no. Britney will no longer be bullied by her father or anyone else. Britney was the family's breadwinner. Facts. And she also otherwise supported you. Publicly airing false or fantastical grievances is wrong, especially when designed to sell books. It is also potentially unlawful and defamatory. Just FYI. Just FYI. Michelle Obama famously said, when they go low, we go high. And to Britney's great credit, that is exactly what Britney is going to do for the time being. Except maybe on Instagram sometimes. You recently reportedly stated that the book was, quote, not about her. I think you can go on social and see how many references in the book there are to Britney. It's hundreds, just saying. She takes you at your word, and we therefore demand that you cease and desist from referencing Britney derogatorily during your promotional campaign. If you fail to do so or defame her, Britney will be forced to consider and take all appropriate legal action. Cheers, bestie. No, that's not what it says. Your representatives may contact me if you have any further questions. Sincerely yours, Rosengart. That is the cease and desist. That is the look. Can we all just, you don't say anything derogatory. You know what derogatory means, Jamie Lynn. Don't defame your sister. Don't speculate on her mental health. Jamie Lynn, tell your story. Tell your story. Because I imagine being 10 years younger than your sister, there's a lot of your story where she is around and things are happening in her world, but that are your story. You have a story to tell. Your story does not have to be inextricably linked with your sister, unless that's what your book was sold as by Team Conservatorship, who thought that Britney might still be in the conservatorship when this was released. Maybe, perhaps, maybe, conspiracy speculation. Maybe. Is that possible? Yep. But it's clear that Britney feels betrayed by it. So not talking about her in the book tour and bringing questions back to you and your experience is fair. Bringing it back to what you've had to endure and overcome to parse out what your childhood was like is fair. Go ahead and do that. But it's okay to also put, boundaries around the questions you're asked. And you can say, please don't ask about my sister or her mental health, or not do an interview. That's fair. Say, please this book's about me. Can we focus on me? Because it's clear that nobody's focused on Jamie Lynn. She's been Britney's sister. So if she wants a moment, she can have a moment without talking about her sister. Just saying. We need to get to these wild court documents because even though we're 18 minutes in, there's so much. And I already know in my soul of souls that I will not be able to get to all of them. So should we get to the former FBI agent's investigation about James Spears's dealings of the conservatorship first? Should we do that first? And then we'll circle back and do the rest of the court documents, because the facts in the court documents are predicated on the investigation by a former FBI agent. Look, I'm going to swoop. Let us talk. Here's the background of how this came up. James Yeeted Spears came in like a wrecking ball with his new lawyers who charge upwards of $1,200 an hour and made a motion that we all found outrageous that I yelled about on this channel. I will find that video and link it below. But James was asking for legal fees for his new lawyers, not Viv and crew, but the new lawyers, saying, yo, 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 this isn't done. I still need to get paid. My lawyers still need to get paid. We're still winding up the estate. So could you go ahead and pay our lawyers? By the way, we would like the estate of Britney Spears to pay the lawyers 80%. And then when it's approved by the court, pay the rest. $1,200 an hour. $1,200 an hour. You thought Viv asking for over $1.3 million was a lot? Guess what these lawsuits say? I'm going to go ahead and spoiler alert. James Yeeted Spears has spent over $30 million in legal fees in 13 years. $30 million in legal fees. So when all of y'all are like, why isn't Britney's estate bigger? Maybe because it all went to lawyers. So we're going to Whitney Rose our aura for a moment. And this is the background. So James comes in like a wrecking ball. The 12th accounting is on the table for today in court. Court should have started a few minutes ago. So the 12th accounting that is asking for the 1.3 million plus in legal fees for Media Matters for Viv and crew is still on the table to be talked about. James wants his attorneys that he hired after he was yeeted to be paid for by Britney's estate. And Rosengart came in and said, I'm sorry, the audacity. What we're not going to do is pay these new attorneys out of Britney's pocket. Thanks. Nope. Yeeted. And so Yeeted opened the door for everything that came next. Rosengart took a look at this and went, oh, well, the case law says that after a conservatorship terminates, that a former conservator can have their legal fees paid if they are winding up the estate and if there are no questions of malfeasance. So Rosengart took the opportunity to say, well, Yeeted, you have put at issue your record as conservator. And I would like to take that opportunity to share with the court what we have found about your record. So now your record of potential and alleged misconduct is directly at issue because your lawyers are not going to get paid by Britney, and this is why. The reason this is coming into court, and I cannot understate this. The reason this is coming into court is because James Spears got greedy and wanted Britney to pay for his new lawyers and didn't think it through. And Rosengart went, fabulous, let's go. I see all the motions for DEFCON red. I agree with you. I agree. So we should do that. Why is my phone not on silent? We should do that. Here's my warning. If you are flash sensitive, when the music stops, the flashing will stop. The DEFCON red intro is flashy. I have tried to make it less flashy. It loses its oomph. For those of you that are flash sensitive, when the music stops, the flashing will also stop. It is time to go to DEFCON. What the fuck? Let's talk about what a former FBI agent can dig up when they are given the time. We're not going to go through deeply their resume. Know that they have over 10 years experience. Well, let's just pull the thing up. Let's just do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Declaration of Shireen Abadi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Shireen, we're gonna go by Agent S, kind of like Agent P. Agent P. We're going with Agent S because I think you're a badass. And I love what you've dug up. And there is some new information. So, Declaration of Agent S in support of objections and opposition to the petition by James P. Spears for order regarding payment from Britney Spears. Agent S says, I am an associate and managing director of the forensic investigations and intelligence practice of Kroll Associates. Hereafter, Kroll. I can't help myself today. Established in 1972, Kroll has been recognized as a preeminent global investigative and business intelligence consultancy. I have testified on multiple occasions in U.S. federal court in cases involving fraud and financial crimes. Maybe you'll get to do it again, Agent S, because I think that's the direction this is all going in. Just my opinion. Prior to joining Kroll, I was a special agent with the FBI. I worked on complex financial fraud and public corruption cases for more than 10 years. That's a good career. I was over 10 years at the DA's office, learned a lot in that time, did a lot in that time. I heart Agent S. I have significant experience interviewing witnesses and analyzing financial, tax, and other records, and investigating various types of sophisticated fraud and financial crimes, including embezzlement, money laundering, corporate and securities fraud, and financial institution fraud. She was also a special investigator under Robert Mueller's special counsel's office in 2017. There is more resume here establishing her expertise. For our purposes, I want to get to the things that she found. Executive summary. At the time that Mr. Spears took on financial responsibilities for the welfare of his daughter, Britney Jean Spears, and her estate, he already had a history of reported violent outburst, alcohol abuse, financial mismanagement, which included his own bankruptcy. As set forth herein, this pattern of misconduct continued through the conservatorship. Shocked Pikachu face. To the detriment of Miss Spears and the estate, Mr. Spears used his role as conservator to enrich himself, shocked face, and those close to him or useful to him, at the expense of his daughter, the estate. And he often worked to rid Miss Spears' inner circle of individuals willing to support or speak on her behalf. They go on with a footnote to say, Mr. Spears and TriStar being Lou Taylor's company, have provided certain limited information, but have failed to respond to many requests, including for basic financial information. To the extent QuickBooks data is referenced herein, it was obtained from TriStar, and Kroll has relied on the data herein, but cannot verify it independently. Why won't TriStar, the former accounting and business management firm of the estate, turn over the books to the conservator of the estate? You might be sitting there going, oh, it is their legal obligation to do that, Emily. That seems like if the conservator becomes a new temporary conservator, you have to give them the financial information. Why, yes. Yes, that would be their legal duty. Does that mean they've done it? No, they sure haven't. Yeated awarded multi-million-dollar contracts to his friends and those whom he was indebted. Emily, is that a conflict of interest? Why, yes. It is. Offering them sizable percentages of his daughter's earnings. He had undisclosed conflicts of interest and engaged in self-dealing with his daughter's assets. Emily, if Yeated Spears had a conflict of interest that was substantial at the beginning of the conservatorship, can they go back and look at all of the decisions that he made in the conservatorship and try to claw back funds to Britney? They should. They sure should. Does Yeated have any of those funds? I'm not optimistic. The fuckery has not even begun, folks. So take a deep breath. If you're already like, I am outraged, dial it back, because you're going to have nowhere to go as this gets worse. Because we're at the, wait till we get below the surface on this iceberg of shit. Emily, that's a visual. Yeah, it is. Sorry about that. Sorry about that visual. I got it too, though. Kind of like a poop emoji with eyes and water and Titanic. I don't know. It happened. He used estate assets to pay personal expenses for himself and his associates, including legal fees. I did a video about this either at the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, where he paid for that Lou Taylor like defamation lawsuit regarding the websites, and I was losing my mind. But we were also talking about the notice to preserve, so it must have been in 2020, because we were talking about the notice to preserve vis-a-vis preserving evidence in the Toddy Westbrook defamation case in Washington, the first one. And I was like, how are you paying for Lou Taylor's legal fees? But FYI, you can't do that. And legal costs incurred after an altercation with Miss Spears' children, leading to a restraining order. Britney's estate paid Yeeted Spears' legal fees to deal with the restraining order that K-Fed got to protect the children. He used her money to fight being kept away from her children. And this isn't the worst part. Y'all, we haven't even gotten started yet. He went so far as to surreptitiously record and capture his daughter's most private communications, including attorney-client communications with her prior court-appointed attorney, Sam Ingham, and private conversations in her bedroom. He did all of this on the heels of serious financial troubles manifesting in a bankruptcy while paying himself millions of dollars from his daughter's estate. The legal docs estimate $6 million, and that's just what they have so far. That's what they've paid from the estate is $6 million. That doesn't include the percentages he was taking of tours and stuff. So let us continue. Mr. Spears' history of behavioral and financial issues. Mr. Spears had a history of violence and alcoholism. They go on to say, according to reports that I have deemed credible, I being the, Agent S, Mr. Spears has a history of violent behavior. When his ex-wife, Lynn Spears, originally filed for divorce in 1980, she requested a restraining order against Mr. Spears, stating she feared he would become angry when served with the divorce papers and that he would harass or physically harm her. That's what happens when people are leaving marriages that are volatile and violent. I'm not surprised by that request. She goes on to say, especially if he had been drinking, and then there is a site, look, receipts, because this investigator pulled all the court documents and read them. In Lynn Spears' memoir, she wrote that Mr. Spears started abusing alcohol heavily in 1977. It's the rare time I get to say before I was born. He would disappear on week-long benders and become verbally abusive when he was drinking. Earlier, when I was talking about my empathy for Jamie Lynn Spears, I have already read all of this, and it absolutely helped form my opinion on that because it's awful. Mr. Spears' own brother, Willie Spears, recounted several instances of Mr. Spears' violence and alcoholism, including one occurring during Britney Spears' childhood, according to Willie Spears. And I've seen this video floating around social media. This video is out there, and I've seen this video. Though he said he was James Spears' brother, I was not sure, so I took it with a grain of salt. And this confirms the video that I have seen. So this is floating around. According to Willie Spears, one time Jamie was drunk and tried to drive off with Britney in the car. She was no more than 5 years old. I tried to stop him, so I reached into the truck to grab the keys off the ignition, and he punched me. Mrs. Spears' former business partner and celebrity, I think they mean Yeeted Spears, former business partner and celebrity chef Bobby Ox, also relayed an event from 2002 where Mr. Spears, drunk and high, became, quote, unhinged, screaming and hollering. Mr. Ox reported that Mr. Spears was, quote, in my face, and I was expecting any minute he was going to get physical. And then they've cited all the media reports on that. His daughter, Jamie Lynn Spears, also recounted Mr. Spears' decade-long alcoholism. Her upcoming memoir recounts that, quote, he spent most of my life in that cycle of ruinous behavior. His bouts of drinking caused me periods of torment and sorrow. It created a lot of anxiety. The hardest part was, quote, can I trust you? are you drinking? And that, look, for Jamie Lynn, that hurts my heart. But you know that happened with Britney too. I'm sure. Which of you is showing up today, and can we be safe? It hurts my heart for all of the Spears kids. It really does. And it hurts my heart for their kids, for the grandkids. So Mr. Spears eventually went to rehab for his alcohol addiction, but his drinking and abusive behavior continued during his tenure as conservator. According to emails, media reports, and statements by attorneys representing the Federline family, a police report and domestic violence restraining order were filed against Mr. Spears after a violent encounter in August 2019, in which Mr. Spears physically shook his 13-year-old grandson in the presence of his other younger grandson. I can't imagine someone going hands-on with my kids and then them staying in my life and me being forced to have them stay in my life. Britney couldn't get rid of her dad at that point. She tried. But can you imagine your father treating you like this, then treating your children like this, and not being able to get rid of him? Like, the anger and the helplessness, it just, the rage I feel for her is. All right, now we're moving on to the financial stuff. So if the alcohol abuse stuff is triggering, we have moved on most of it. Mr. Spears had a history of mismanaging his personal finances before he took over managing Miss Spears's estate. Remember when excuse me. Remember when Viv was in court being like, but Your Honor, we can't have a new temporary conservator. They're a stranger. We don't know if they're qualified. Let's look at Yeated Spears's qualifications as conservator. Mr. Spears has a long history of personal financial mismanagement, including a bankruptcy, mortgage defaults, state and federal tax lien, and failed business ventures. From 1991 to 2000, Spears had several state and federal tax liens and one judgment filed against him. In October 1994, First Guarantee Bank won a judgment against Mr. Spears and his wife for the amount of $51,000 some odd dollars in connection with their default on their mortgage. To satisfy the judgment, Tangapoa, we're doing our best. Tangapoa Parish Sheriff's Office, sounds good to me, seized a portion of the Spears land in Kentwood, Louisiana. Subsequently, in June 1996, the Tangapoa Parish Sheriff's Office also seized a portion of a property containing Miss Spears's childhood home, along with 2 trucks and several pieces of construction machinery, to satisfy a second credit default to the Bank of Greensburg in the amount of $58,000 some odd dollars. In July 1998, Mr. Spears filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. During a March 2002 interview, Mr. Spears summed up his financial woes, stating he, quote, squandered his money on wild women and beer and was all but broke. Interesting. That's what he said about it. That's how he views it. Ooh, okay. In publicly filed 2008 petition requesting that he be compensated for his new role as conservator, that was granted without any objection. Mr. Spears told the court that he had been working as a private chef and caterer prior to the conservatorship, but had to forego all means of employment to devote his full time and attention to caring for his daughter and her affairs. Despite these claims, it does not appear that Mr. Spears had any stable employment or income in the years immediately prior to the conservatorship. I'm shocked. There is some indication he may have worked at a restaurant owned by Miss Spears and Ox in 2002, but according to Ox, Mr. Spears had no ownership or authority over the endeavor. There are also media reports. Hold on. There are media reports of Mr. Spears working with Joseph Neiman at a smoothie shop in Venice Beach, California, from late 2004 to early 2006. Your Honor, I need to be paid $20,000 plus odd dollars a month. Exact amount is blowing my mind. Because I have to leave my job at the smoothie shop. to do this full time. I have to make sure Britney is locked in her house full time. Okay. We're not even to the worst of it yet, y'all. Just hold on to your rage. Let's not have the cortisol burn out yet. Just breathe. Neiman is quoted as saying that the position was, quote, an attempt at Mr. Spears getting his life back together after his post-divorce alcoholic tailspin and subsequent rehab stint. And it's at that point, friends, it's at that point that they said, let's give this man a $60 million+ estate. Let's put this man in charge. He's working at a smoothie shop. No shade to working at a smoothie shop, but he is working at a smoothie shop to try to get his life back together. Let's put him in charge. Okay. In 2006, apparently Mr. Spears announced the launch of an app for the Palms Home Poker host in partnership with the partial owners of the Palms Casino in Las Vegas. Apparently the venture failed. Shocked. From the outset of the conservatorship, Mr. Spears routinely acted in his own interest rather than that of his daughters. The conservatorship originated from an ethically conflicted relationship. As reported by the New York Times on December 19th, 2021, prior to the start of the conservatorship in 2008, Mr. Spears borrowed $40,000 from TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group, the then obscure business management company with only a few clients, owned by Mr. Spears' friend, Lou Taylor. We're going to talk about that friendship a little bit later. There were some allegations that are large and a little like, yep. After initially denying it, counsel for Mr. Spears conceded the existence of this loan. This right here is so significant. Other stuff is bad for Britney. The legal significance of this cannot be underestimated. The legal significance of this is tremendous. Spears' attorneys have acknowledged that he had a conflict when he started this conservatorship. I think that will open the door for them to go back and look at everything. It gives them a legal way and legal reason to start looking at what they can unwind. And whether Britney will get her money back or just get vindication, I don't know. Where that will go, I don't know. But there is a reason to do it, a solid reason to do it. And this is a very legally solid reason to do this. If this had been disclosed to the court, he never should have become the conservator. Ever. Does that mean that they wouldn't appoint a different conservator? I don't know. Does that mean the conservatorship would never have happened? I don't know. What it means is if this had been disclosed to the court, which it was not, James Spears never could have been the conservator. Because you know why? Because he started funneling all the money to the people he owed money to. Do you think they ever made him pay that loan? I want to know. Did they ever make him pay that loan? Did TriStar ever make him pay it? I don't know. Maybe this is why TriStar doesn't want to tell Rosengart how much money the conservatorship paid TriStar. Maybe this is why they just won't say, oh, over the time that we worked as business management, we earned this much. Maybe that's why they won't say that. Perhaps. So this is a legally significant thing. And I can't overestimate the fact that this had to have been told to the court, and this was not told to the court. In view of Mr. Spears' prior bankruptcy and financial situation at the time, the $40,000 loan from TriStar represented a significant amount of money to Spears in 2008, during the recession. Mr. Spears' access to his daughter and her substantial earning power presented a significant business opportunity for Lou Taylor and their then fledgling company, TriStar. It was against this backdrop that Mr. Spears, after consulting with Taylor, petitioned for the creation of a conservatorship and thereafter installed TriStar as Ms. Spears' business manager. As discussed further below, based on Kroll's analysis of the data made available by TriStar via QuickBooks, Mr. Spears awarded TriStar multi-million-dollar commissions and fees from his daughter's earnings. To be clear, TriStar has nevertheless still failed and refused to answer the simple, basic question that Kroll and Ms. Spears' counsel have repeatedly asked. How much money did TriStar make from Britney Spears and her estate? TriStar has instead referred Kroll and her counsel to 13 years of disjointed, complex, and incomplete accountings, while also providing the above referenced information via its own unverified QuickBooks software. Further, the accountings expressly note that they are incomplete. These are the accountings that go to the court. Incomplete because it would be, quote, impractical to fit the business activities and transactions of Miss Spears into the form of a traditional accounting. Oh, Your Honor, it's too much work for us to tell you everything we're doing. Please don't look. For example, they do not cover Miss Spears' assets held outside of the estate and, quote, entities formed after the conservatorship was established are not reflected in the inventories. The businesses, the multiple businesses, LLCs and entities that they were used are not in the conservatorship accountings. I had no idea that they were keeping separate businesses and LLCs outside of the accountings that the court never looked at. I shouldn't be shocked, but I'm shocked. Like, nobody asked, but TriStar was doing the accountings and TriStar was benefiting. Because of all of this, as of this date, Kroll is not in a position to independently verify TriStar's take or total earnings. No wonder TriStar doesn't want to turn over their books. The incoming president of the National Guardianship Association said to the New York Times that the circumstances, quote, reeks of conflict of interest. Yup. And raises the troubling question. Yup. Is the conservator making decisions in the best interest of the conservatee or the business manager who they owe a debt to? The Free Britney movement has been asking that very question for, like, I don't know, 13 years. Mr. Spears' conflict of interest with respect to Lou Taylor continued beyond instilling TriStar as business management for the estate. From 2009 to 2013, Spears allowed Stonebridge Investment, Inc., an entity then 50% owned by Lou Taylor, to manage a portion of Miss Spears' assets. Weird. Information obtained from Stonebridge shows that Miss Spears' assets were dispersed from these accounts at Mr. Spears' express direction in 2013. The same year, public records show that Lou Taylor sold her 50% share of Stonebridge. There is more going on there. We will keep an eye on it. This is the tip of the iceberg with regard to TriStar moving Britney's money. I think. On at least two occasions during that time, Lou Taylor's Stonebridge managed these assets. Co-conservator Andrew Wallet expressed concern with these funds being under Stonebridge control. Why? Why would you be concerned, Andrew Wallet? Is it because it's a gross and flagrant conflict of interest? Yep, it is. So continuing on, Mr. Spears used Britney Spears' estate to enrich himself and those loyal or useful to him. Some of Spears' first moves as temporary conservator were to rid Miss Spears' circles of individuals willing to advocate on her behalf in the face of his and TriStar's demands, which is very similar to most abusive relationships that I ended up seeing in court. It's amazing how isolation is the first step of that, because you can't have people around that are fighting back. It's, when Luna, to quote this again, but when Luna looked at Harry Potter and was talking about Voldemort trying to make Harry feel alone, she looked at him and said something to the effect of, well, of course he wants you to think you're all alone. When you're alone, you're less of a threat. And that's what's going on with the isolation of Britney Spears. Make her feel like she's alone and there's no one to turn to, that the only person she can turn to are those in the conservatorship. It's abusive, it's appalling, and it's what allowed this to go on for 13 years. That's part of what allowed this to go on for 13 years. At the time, Lou Taylor and TriStar were already registered agents for one of Mr. Spears' business entities and were also business managers for Miss Spears' sister, Jamie Lynn Spears. As noted above, Mr. Spears was indebted to TriStar from a personal loan in early 2008. Mr. Spears also replaced his daughter's prior security detail with Black Box Security, owned by his friend Idan. We heard about Idan in the Controlling Britney Spears documentary from the New York Times, which, according to the same QuickBooks data reviewed by Kroll and with the same caveats, was ultimately paid almost $6 million from Spears' estate. $6 million from Spears' estate to spy on her in her bedroom. Cool. Although Yeated contended that his daughter needed the conservatorship because she was incapable of caring for herself or his affairs, Yeated was intent on ensuring that she continued to generate significant earnings, a sizable portion of which he distributed to himself and those within his inner circle. Almost immediately after the conservatorship was made permanent, he had Miss Spears embark on an international tour, and he petitioned the court to be paid a percentage of the tour's gross revenues, which should have never been approved, should have never happened, and is appalling. He's earning a paycheck. First of all, he shouldn't have been earning a paycheck. He should have just been accounting for time and paid for the actual time he used. He's earning a paycheck. He's earning money for rent from her estate, and he's earning a percentage of her tour revenue as the conservator. It's so, we knew this. I've been yelling about this for months with the percentage of the tour income, because it's in the same objections as the Lou Taylor getting her legal fees paid. But what? That's literally not the point of a conservatorship. This arrangement allowed him to profit directly from Miss Spears' labor and incentivized him to maximize Miss Spears' output, regardless of whether that and her exhausting schedule were in her best interest. There were checks and balances in this conservatorship. Can we talk about what those were for a minute? The conservator of the person had to approve the work that the conservator of the estate suggested. He was both. I think Britney should go on tour. Yes, that would be lovely. It would be great for her. So there was no one to check him. He was signing off on both sides of all of this. Okay. Daddy loves her money. He had Miss Spears embark on an international tour, and he petitioned the court to be paid a percentage of the tour's gross revenues. Should have never been approved. This arrangement allowed him to profit directly from Miss Spears' labor and incentivized him to maximize Miss Spears' output. Yep. Regardless of whether that and her exhaustive schedule were in her best interest. Sorry that I repeated myself. I lost track when I got mad. Throughout the conservatorship, Spears committed his daughter to record multiple studio albums, perform several additional tours, including a multi-year residency in Vegas, among countless other endeavors, until she refused in 2019. Her former music director, Mark Delcourt, who worked closely with Spears on both the circus tour and the Vegas residency, worked with other music superstars, told me that. I love that Agent S started hunting down the people that were around and having conversations. Told me that Spears worked his daughter to the bone and that she often and understandably was exhausted from the workload. He recounted several instances in which Miss Spears told him she was so tired and just needed a break or to sleep. Delcourt also described how Yeated and TriStar would routinely force Spears, against her wishes, to sing first thing in the morning, something he said is very uncommon in the industry and that no singer should be forced to do, certainly against their wishes. To his dismay, Mr. Delcourt was told by Britney's team that her early morning work was scheduled around her lithium doses, the ones she didn't want to be on, in order to take advantage of the hours when she was supposedly most, quote, productive. As a result of the lithium medication she was forced to take, which, upon information and belief, is a very strong and antiquated drug. Mr. Spears routinely removed individuals who were not loyal to him. And it talks about, and I'm going to skip through this because we have so much to get to, and we've almost been live for an hour. This talks about those who worked with Britney and are in the Controlling Britney Spears documentary, including Felicia, including Dan Gorge, and including her wardrober, Miss Kaluta. So they cover what was in that documentary. They also say that the tour manager, George, observed similar controlling conduct, saying, quote, the first rule of the conservatorship was you don't talk about the conservatorship. And he was warned, be careful, don't get too close. People have a way of disappearing. Meaning, if Britney feels like she can trust you, you will be fired and removed, because Britney does not get to talk to anyone other than team conservatorship, it seems. They talked about removing Britney's former nanny. And media reports indicated that Torres left her job with Britney because she was so disturbed by what was being done to Miss Spears and how she was being, quote, emotionally manipulated by the conservatorship. Furthermore, Alex Valsov, a former employee of Black Box, told me, because she interviewed the whistleblower from the documentary, that Miss Spears' security detail, who was sympathetic to Spears or who questioned any of the extreme measures taken to control and subjugate her, was removed. So speak up, be fired. The black box that we're going to get into, I'm going to highlight the things that aren't in the documentary. If you have not watched the documentary, watch it. But the documentary talks about recording in her bedroom and using iCloud to real-time monitor Britney's text messages, phone calls, emails, everything, including conversations with her lawyer. But this has some very new information to it. Or at least I think it's new to me information, I should say. Following publication of these troubling allegations, I personally debriefed and interviewed whistleblower Alex Valsov at the Beverly Hills Hotel in Los Angeles. I corroborated the Times reporting that Mr. Spears' extensive surveillance efforts included of Miss Spears' attorney-client communications and private conversations in her bedroom. Based on my training and experience, I concluded that Valsov was highly credible. So he goes into what he talked about in the documentary. Mr. Spears directed Black Box to surreptitiously mirror Miss Spears' iPhone content contemporaneously and in real time. They switched from a BlackBerry to an iPhone. They asked Valsov to figure out how to mirror everything off the iPhone. And then in 2015, and they were using different apps and capture things to do that. This is also not uncommon in stalking and DV relationships where people's phones and iClouds are being mirrored onto other devices. Be aware that this still does happen. Change your passwords frequently. Tell them to no one. Mr. Valsov told me that in or around 2015, at Robin Greenhill's suggestion, Mr. Spears instructed Black Box to mirror the content of the iCloud to a separate device that could be reviewed. At the time, Valsov told his boss that they could not monitor the phone in this way because it made the contents of her iCloud vulnerable to intrusion and compromise her private information and make it public. A huge concern if you're Britney Spears. Boss told Valsov concerns to Mr. Spears and Robin Greenhill from TriStar. They said they were willing to take that risk. Yeah, it was more important to them, it seems, to see what she was saying. Upon receiving Mr. Spears' instructions, Black Box purchased an iPad, which was linked to Spears' iCloud account, allowing the contents of her phone, which was backed up to the cloud, to be simultaneously accessed and reviewed from the iPad. The iPad was kept in a safe at Black Box offices. The two from Black Box would regularly review the iPad's context, text messages, videos, personal data mirrored from her phone, photos, literally everything. And they would put the data in encrypted folders before sending them to yeeted Spears for review. According to Valsov, Black Box sent Mr. Spears personal communications to send Britney Spears. I wish they would just call her Britney and yeeted because it would be so easy. The Mrs. and Mr. is hard for your girl sometimes. They would send Britney's personal communications to yeeted at his explicit request. Yeeted Spears would on occasion ask Black Box to send him specific items from Spears' iCloud, such as therapy notes or text messages. It should be noted that Mr. Spears was aware that he was expressly prohibited from reviewing therapy notes without her permission following his removal as conservator of the person in 2019. In fact, after yeeted Spears expressed displeasure to counsel for the conservator in April 2019 that he didn't, quote, have power to see her physics records, counsel explained to him that he would need Britney's permission to, quote, see notes on what she discusses with her psychiatrist. No one needs to know that. It's between her and her psychiatrist. What the actual fuck? Communications between Britney and her personal court-appointed attorney, Sam Ingham, were among private communications that Black Box and Dad Spears monitored. Valsov told me that Yeated Spears was particularly interested in his daughter's attorney-client communications and wanted regular updates from Black Box on the substance of those privileged messages. Surveillance of her communications with her lawyer continued until at least 2020, when Mr. Yemeni instructed Valsov to cease reviewing attorney-client privilege communications. On the same day he gave those instructions, ask yourself what happened to make this happen. So on the same day that the whistleblower's boss said, oh, by the way, stop recording the attorney-client information, maybe. On that same day, Sam Ingham, court-appointed counsel, emailed the boss, Valsov, and others with the subject line, Britney's phone. In that email, Ingham sought confirmation from conservators' counsel that in connection with the purchase of a new phone from Ms. Spears, no one other than Ms. Spears, quote, can access her calls, voicemails, or texts directly or indirectly, because she had to have known or suspected. There's no way that Sam Ingham is just randomly asking that question, because why would you think that that would happen? The only reason Sam Ingham is asking that question is, in my mind, because Britney raised that to him, saying they know. How do they know? The following day, Geraldine Weil, counsel for the conservator, responded to Ingham in relevant part, quote, Jamie confirms that he has no access to her calls, voicemails, or text. The specificity of this language is he has no access. Currently, because the day the email came in, they asked him to stop. How did they know that Britney and her attorney were on to him? This is my speculation. They were monitoring her communications and emails. So that I'm speculating that they saw that she was bringing it up. And that's why they said, shut it down. And they said, shut it down the same day that Ingham was like, yo, by the way, what's up? And then his attorney's like, no, he doesn't have access. We stopped doing that yesterday. Ms. Weil went on to say, we don't know if Britney has given access to those items to anyone else. For example, her boyfriend or children. Oh, okay, blame Britney's boyfriend. Sure. This is also the email that he showed in the documentary that really just blew my mind. Because I was like, oh, this is just. Agent S says, I have reviewed a copy of this email exchange dated August 23rd and August 24th, which was provided by conservators' counsel to John Zabel. Regardless of whether surveillance of Ms. Spears' attorney-client communications did in fact stop in August 2021, Valsov told me that monitoring of other contents of Spears' phone did not cease until early 2021. Up until that time, Valsov regularly overheard Mr. Yemeni, the boss, updating Mr. Spears on the contents of phones and devices used by his daughter. So the statement closely couched that Jamie confirms he has no access to her calls, voicemails, or text was not true. Whether that's what James Spears told his attorneys and they're like, we're just saying what he said, or not, it's clear that it didn't stop. The FBI agent goes on to explain that all of that shit's a federal crime. Guess what? It's a crime in California too. We're going to go there next. Mr. Spears instructed Black Box to secretly record activity and conversations in Mrs. Spears' bedroom. Gross. They talk about the same thing they talked about in the documentary, that there was a surreptitious recording device placed in Britney's room, that it recorded her conversations with her boyfriend, with her children, with anyone that was in her bedroom, that she had no safe space. According to Valsov, Black Box was initially responsible for suggesting. Oh, so Black Box suggested it. Was initially responsible for suggesting that a secret listening device be planted in Mrs. Spears' bedroom, but Mr. Spears, quote, loved the idea and approved and instructed that the installation move forward. It just is so gross, and it just makes me so angry. But the way that Valsov said this, Mr. Spears loved the idea, reminds me of Britney's testimony on June 23rd, where she says, he loves having control over me, Your Honor. He loves it. And she said it with such disgust and such anger. And it's interesting to me that it's mirrored, that it's not that he thought this was necessary for his safety or he was worried somebody was going to stalk her and come into her bedroom. It was he loved having access to what was going on in Britney's bedroom. And how fucking sick is that? Also illegal. This is the stuff that's going to pull this down, I think. This is the stuff that's going to pull stuff down, because these are solid things that are easy to prove. We know that Valsov has backups of the audio recordings. This is a crime in California. The others are federal crimes. So we know that this should be enough, in my opinion, as I soapbox some more, and then we'll get back to this. In my opinion, this is enough to start an investigation, probably at the federal level. Even though there are state crimes in here, they can bring those at the federal level, because there are federal crimes in here too, the wiretapping. And this is enough to start the ball rolling, I think, on a federal investigation, and then get into the more extensive financial investigation. But these crimes are enough to start. By the way, you can't do that shit in California. Don't record people. Black box improperly surveilled individuals of interest to Mr. Spears. Yeeted Spears paid Black Box to investigate the Free Britney movement and people that they thought were speaking up. For example, Valsov told me that Mr. Yemeni had a relationship with a private investigator who was somehow able to obtain private phone records from the telephone company, and then Mr. Yemeni used this private investigator to obtain phone records for, among other people, Lynn Spears and Britney Spears' masseuse, to determine if they were speaking with the media. By the way, you can generally only do that by a court-signed search warrant or subpoena. Investigators can't just call up Verizon and be like, yo, I'd love to see who this person's calling and texting. You can't do that. Mr. Spears and Fred just yawned so loud. Mr. Spears engaged in repeated financial misconduct, self-dealing, and mismanagement during his tenure as conservator. Let's get into the money stuff. I should say that I'll just give context now for those of you that haven't been following this super closely online. We're going to get into stuff about Lou Taylor's personal legal expenses. In the other documents that we will get to as much as we can and go through the high points, there are interrogatories and requests for admissions and denials. In those Emily, just pull them up. Yep, good idea. I'm going to pull those up real quick, and then we'll jump back to them, because there's questions posed in those. Look, these are questions posed in interrogatories. Take them as allegations. Do not take them as a fact. They are asking the question. I personally think there would be a reason for them to ask the question. There might not be. They might just be like, we want to know. This might just be a question. It's allowed to just be a question. Before I go any further, repeat after me. I will not state this on the internet as a fact, because it is a question, it is an allegation, and it may or may not be a fact, but we cannot know that. We all good? Good. We're good. That is my way of disclaimer. This is going to take a minute to load because it is over 256 pages long. Let's see. We're going to scoot. We're going to control off ourselves all the way down this massive document to get to where we need to be. Because again, 200 pages. Let's get to the end of these interrogatories. This gives context to what we're going to talk about next. Let's see. Interrogatories. My computer's like, I don't want to load any of these pages. It's too many. I want you guys to see the exact words. Hold on. My computer is still trying to load Do you see this? Trying to load the interrogatories. It's not helpful. You're wrecking my flow, Google. All right. That's going to load. I'll just tell you what it says. One of the interrogatories asks for a specific denial as to whether or not James Spears had a romantic relationship with Lou Taylor. I will pull that up as this loads. I should have loaded it earlier, so we had it, but it is also, Mercury retrograde. Am I surprised? No. So the interrogatory posits the question: did you have intimate relationships? Did you have a relationship with Lou Taylor? So that question is out there. We're going to continue on, and we will get back to that in a minute. But that's what gives context to some of this and why some of this may or may not make sense. Because why else are you paying? For me, why are you paying the business manager's legal fees out of the estate of your daughter? Like, if the business manager has an issue, why are you paying those fees? It just doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Well, does that question make it make sense? I don't know. Mr. Spears authorized Lou Taylor's personal legal fees to be paid by Mrs. Spears' estate. As set forth below, Mr. Spears used estate funds to pay legal fees of Lou Taylor, the personal friend, they didn't put it in parentheses, to whom he was indebted $40,000 at the time he placed his daughter into the conservatorship, even though his counsel advised him that the expenditure was in an inappropriate use of Britney's estate. Well, at least somebody said something, and Sam Ingham actually objected to this. For once, this, again, I'll link down below after I stream the video where I cover this, but Sam Ingham objected in the 12th accounting that's being heard in court today. Sam Ingham said, why are we paying Lou Taylor's fees, by the way? Why? July 1st, 2019, Lou Taylor filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court of the North District of Georgia against Brian S. Kutcher, Lou Taylor versus Kutcher, for allegedly utilizing two domains, loumtaylor.com and loumtaylor.net, to tarnish Lou Taylor's name and mark. Ms. Taylor was initially represented by Stokes Wagner and later by Sperry IP Law LLC, Vivid IP law firms located in Atlanta, Georgia. Why are we paying for these lawyers from Britney's estate? Based on my review of the court filing and internal email communications, that's the part I find most juicy, internal email communications, it is clear that the lawsuit was a personal matter related to and concerning Taylor personally, and that as a business manager who handled Ms. Spears' bills, investments, money, and taxes, and thereby owed fiduciary duties to Ms. Spears and her estate, these legal fees should have never been charged to Ms. Spears and her estate by Mr. Spears, who also had fiduciary duties, and never should have allowed this to occur. In March 2020, the law firm with whom Yeated and Lou M. Taylor worked in Los Angeles invoiced Britney's estate in the amount of $153,000 for legal services. After a modest reduction was applied, these fees were paid by one of Britney's business entities on March 10th, 2020. They paid it. Lou Taylor's company paid themselves. Lou Taylor's company paid Lou's lawyers out of Britney's estate. At the request of Yeated, with his authorization, TriStar, as a business manager and bill payer, effectively paid itself in connection with this transaction. This is from Holland and Knight, Viv's law firm. Viv's law firm was actually like, yo, we're lawyers and you can't do that. On February 9th, 2021, this is well after, by the way, this is well after the objections from Sam Ingham. The Kutcher pleadings I just forwarded to you further support my conclusion that Lou should pay the fees of the Atlanta lawyers and more specifically reimburse the conservatorship. Yep. Neither the complaint nor the answer makes any reference to Britney. No connection is made between Britney and the lawsuit. Lou doesn't even try to weave it into the complaint, which makes the sell that the conservatorship should pay her fees even more tenuous. And that is an email from Yeated Spears' lawyers to him saying, bro, slow down. Yeeted Spears authorized more than at least $300,000 in excessive overpayments to TriStar. I'm going to summarize this and move on because there's so much more to get to. When Britney stopped performing and took a hiatus in 2019, Lou Taylor emailed James Spears saying that TriStar's commission only garnered $179,000 in 2019 because Miss Spears did not perform. Because Miss Spears was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, I'm out, and sat down and was like, I'm not performing anymore. Miss Spears did not perform. Miss Taylor wanted to ensure TriStar obtained a minimum of $500,000 per year, so she requested a retroactive payment of $308,000 plus for 2019 and an alteration of their agreement going forward, so TriStar would be paid 5% or $500,000 per year, whichever was greater. Sam Ingham objected to this. Here's the email from Lou Taylor to Yeeted Spears. Jamie, we just ran time and billing for Britney. Oh, they're capable of doing that. They're capable of running time and billing. So why can't they give it to Britney's lawyers? We know they have the capability. We have a $400K loss on time and billing. Oh, so you know how much money you're making. We have been paid $179,000. I want to stay at 5% commission, but set a floor of $500,000 a year, meaning we would not get paid less than $500K this year and 2020. When was this email sent? What was the date? What was the date of this email? I need to go back and look because this was like right as the rumblings around the vid-19 were starting, as I recall. This was, let's see. This was right around the end of December 2019. So take that how you will. Meaning we would not get paid less than $500K this year and 2020, so we would get a retainer payment each month and each quarter settle it up against the commission. Then next year we will look at time and billing again. Is this approved? Mr. Spears did not question, but instead responded to this email, approved, and a payment was made by Spears' estate to TriStar on December 21st, 2019. This is one of the other items that is on the block today in court. Sam Ingham objected to this. This is part of the 12th accounting that's being fought over. This is why the 12th accounting is still being fought over. The 12th accounting has $1 million in legal fees to Holland and Knight, hundreds of thousands of dollars for media matters being paid to lawyers, and this $300,000 payment to Lou Taylor. If the court doesn't approve it, TriStar has to pay it back. It's why this court hearing is so important. I don't know if everything will get resolved today or if some will get put over to another day, but this is why this court hearing is so important today, because this is talking about the money. This was objected to, so the court hasn't approved any of these payments yet. The payments were made. James Spears' approved them. Taylor issued the payments to themselves. These payments were made, but they could be clawed back. And now we're getting to the crazy part that I had never heard of before. Mr. Spears exploited his role as conservator to promote his own business and pilot television show called Cookin', Cruisin', and Chaos with James Spears. Seriously, WTF. Mr. Spears' Cookin', Cruisin', and Chaos motorhome. Great. Based upon my review of public information and an interview with Mark Delcourt, the longtime music director for Miss Spears, Mr. Spears exploited his role as conservator in other ways. Amazing. To try to create his own business and repeatedly to try to launch his own television series, acquiring an expensive tour bus for that purpose and using the time and expertise of Britney's touring staff and crew to assist in this. Her crew. He used her crew to try to do this. And I really wonder if he got the tour bus from Britney's tour. It doesn't say that. I have questions. Her crew. He got a tour bus to launch the Cookin', Cruisin', and Chaos motorhome. Also has a history as a violent alcoholic, and Cookin', Cruisin', and Chaos is what you want to go with? Sure. Okay. I have to just keep going. I interviewed and spoke with Mr. Delcourt regarding his experience and observations during his lengthy tenure working for Britney, including a number of years following the establishment of the conservatorship. He reported that in 2010 or 2011, he was told that Yeated had spent several $100,000 to purchase a tour bus for his own personal use, which he had then outfitted with barbecue grills and other specialized cooking equipment. I have identified no streams of revenue to Mr. Spears other than the more than $6 million Mr. Spears took from the estate in salary and commissions, which he in fact disclosed. That would have secured the purchase price and retrofitting of the bus. So where is the money coming from? And if he's buying, like normally, this is my speculation, but normally food trucks aren't tour buses. Is he purchasing the tour bus? My wondering, is he purchasing the tour bus through the conservatorship? It does not say that. That is my speculation. Is he purchasing the tour bus through the conservatorship? Because like a food truck would look suspicious on the accounting, but a tour bus makes sense, but not really, because during this time, isn't she in a Vegas residency? What does she need a tour bus for? I'm just wondering. And they are also wondering, at the least, given Mr. Spears' dire financial situation prior to becoming conservator, including the bankruptcy, Mr. Spears was able to afford the luxury of an expensive tour bus only because of the degree to which he enriched himself as conservator. I want them to look further into finding that tour bus, but they don't have the full financials. Keep that in mind. The full financials have not been disclosed. They might find this later. It's my speculation. I have questions. I have seen a photograph of a truck with the name Cookin' Cruisin' in Chaos emblazoned on the side in the area where Mr. Spears is known to reside in Louisiana. I'm also aware that Mr. Spears owns a catering company called Cookin' Cruisin' in Chaos LLC, and that this company has several vehicles registered to it, including 3 vehicles that are or were at one point co-owned by TriStar. Weird. TriStar is part of the chaos. Mr. Spears diverted tour resources to promote himself. Delacour reported that in 2015, he saw Mr. Spears' retrofitted tour bus parked outside the Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, where Miss Spears and her crew were rehearsing for the Las Vegas residency. The audacity. Around that time, Mr. Spears approached Delacour to request that Delacour use his experience and expertise in digital recording to help Mr. Spears record a promotional reel that he intended to use to pitch his own pilot cooking show entitled Cookin' Cruisin' in Chaos with Jamie Spears. Understanding that Mr. Spears had the power to hire and fire tour personnel, a power dynamic, including Delacour, he said he felt forced to oblige. I'm not surprised. Mr. Spears never offered to pay for Delacour's services. Pay? Which would have cost Mr. Spears a significant amount of money if he had not had access to and freely availed himself of that access to highly trained professionals such as Delacour working for his daughter. Mr. Spears billed the estate in efforts to oppose the Free Britney movement. Fred is done. Fred is done? Hi. You woke up from your nap. We need a little kitty. We needed a little Ponard. You can sit over there. When the Free Britney movement gained momentum, Spears instructed Black Box to conduct investigations into certain members of the movement. I want names. I want to know who they were looking at. I'm so curious. Mr. Valslov argued that this was not a good use of Black Box's time or resources, as Free Britney fans did not represent a threat to Spears, in contrast to the threats from stalkers, as celebrities have to deal with. Despite the argument and despite the fact that the Free Britney movement was a reputational or financial threat to Lou Taylor and Mr. Spears personally, rather than to Miss Spears, who wanted her freedom, Black Box conducted investigations on several individuals associated with the Free Britney movement, a fact that I have independently corroborated based on emails that I have reviewed. Agent S knows. Mr. Spears charged Miss Spears' estate for legal fees related to his serious altercation and harassment with Britney's son. We've covered that. He made Britney's estate pay the legal fees to deal with the restraining order that KFED got against him because he went hands-on with Britney's kid. Mr. Spears engaged in self-dealing in connection with the purchase and sale of Mrs. Spears' childhood home. This is where shit gets even more wild. Mr. Spears also engaged in self-dealing when, in his capacity as conservator, he purchased Miss Spears' childhood home for himself. Jamie and Lynn Spears originally purchased, and they have the address, in Kentwood, Louisiana in 1980, which was subdivided into 3 parcels, something I was not aware of when I was in California that people do, but buying large plots of lands and parceling them out like family land is something that happens in places in the country that aren't Los Angeles. Who knew? Kentwood, Louisiana, you can buy land and then parcel it, sell off parcels and do all kinds of shit with it, build other houses. Wild. Anyway, let's not talk about what Emily didn't know before she moved to Tennessee. So the property was subdivided into 3 parcels. In August 1986, the bank foreclosed on a parcel that included the family home. In February 2002, Bridgemore Timber LLC, an entity owned by Britney Spears. Remember, these entities owned by Britney are not accounting to the court. Just remember. Bridgemore Timber LLC. Don't knock my shit over, Fred. An entity owned by Britney purchased this parcel from the bank for $56,000. Why the fuck does Britney care about this parcel of land? In 2017, Yeated Spears petitioned the court to allow him to purchase this property from Bridgemore for $59,000, more than it was paid for there. Among other reasons, Mr. Spears claimed this was in the best interest of Britney, as the property had decreased significantly in value and had an ongoing tax burden and would result in significant loss to Miss Spears' estate. Britney's company bought it from the bank. James wanted to buy it for himself. The court approved the sales to James Spears on this basis. In fact, the tax burden for the property was less than $57. Here's the kicker. Just wait for the good news. In February 2021, just 3 years after acquiring this property, by the way, the amount of time you need to hold a property to not get all of the tax consequences is how many? 3, friends. It's 3. 3 years after acquiring the property from his daughter's estate, Spears sold the parcel for $275,000. So he bought it from Britney. He made Britney buy it from the bank at $56,000. He bought it from Britney at $59,000. And then he sold it for $275,000 fucking dollars. And he told the court it was bad for the estate because there was a tax burden on the property of $57. Are you fucking kidding me? This is one example. One. We're going to get into a whole lot more real estate dealings. This is going to be prong 2. When I said prong 1's going to be the recording that pulls this down, prong 2 is going to be the real estate dealings. We'll see what prong 3 is. Rage. I have rage. For all of you that are new here, hi. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know there's almost 7,000 of you in here. Go ahead and do the thumbs uppy things. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, I was a deputy district attorney in LA for over 10 years. And I dealt with financial crime, so I get a little snap. I get a little snap about this kind of shit. There's other land that's getting sold off. Just wait. There's more. Just wait, there's more. Also, I see you guys in the chat asking, why did the court approve this? No one objected. I guarantee you, no, I can't guarantee. I suspect that Ingham did not look into what the tax burden was. And everybody's like, oh, well, if it's the tax burden, go ahead and sell it. Oh, Yeated Spears, thank you for taking this off our hands, and never looked into it again. That's why they needed an investigator to come in and be like, hold up, I got questions. This shit seems fucked. Continuing on, Spears sold land owned by Britney at a heavy loss. In August 2002, Spears' entity Bridgemore purchased a 154.57 acre of land in Louisiana for $682,000. In March 2016, while Spears was the co-manager of Bridgemore, he sold this parcel of land to his niece and nephew for $386,000 at a loss to the estate of almost $300,000, or at a benefit to his niece and nephew, Laura and Brad Matthews, of over $300,000. Again, this is money coming out of Britney's estate that she took a loss on so other people could benefit. Laura Matthews, née Covington, is the daughter of Reginald Covington, Miss Spears's uncle, and the former manager of Bridgemore, the company. Mr. Spears also sold several additional properties to third parties at a collective loss to the estate of over $800,000. In May 2021, they purchased 3 parcels of land in East Feliciana Parish for $2.8+ million. In February 2015, when Mr. Spears managed the company, he sold these parcels of land to 3 separate parties for an aggregate total of $2.2 million, a loss of more than $500,000 to the estate. It goes on. There's another one. In August 2001, the land was purchased for over $346,000. In March 2015, that land was sold for $257,000 at a $90,000 loss. But wait, there's more. In August 2002, Bridgemore purchased 3 parcels of land for just over $1 million. In August 2021, while Mr. Spears was the manager, he sold these parcels for $815,000 at a loss of more than $250,000. Notice that these are all coming in August. What are you doing, Fred? In August 2021. No, just that one in 2021. These are all going along in 2015, 2021. The value of land in 2021 versus 2002 should be going up, not down. I will be very interested to see who these parcels were sold to. I imagine it's going to take them some subpoenas and some doing. I'm supposing that these were sold through business entities, so we don't yet know who's behind those business entities. It will be interesting to find out one day. In 2 of these 3 cases, Bridgemore reserved the right to oil, gas, and minerals in the soil after sale. However, per financial records, these leases only earned Bridgemore $125,000 during the entirety of the conservatorship, a right which does not justify the aggregate loss of more than $800,000. Spears personally paid living expenses with estate funds, utility, and other bills in Kentwood, Louisiana. It seems that there was also a building where stuff was kept, and Mr. Spears's catering company, Cook and Cruisin' and Chaos LLC, worked out of the warehouse without paying rent to the estate. However, according to financial documentation obtained from temporary conservator John Zabel between 2012 and 2020, Bridgemore, not Yeated Spears, paid more than $11,000 to AT&T for phone services at the warehouse, and 2, close to $9,000 to Advanced Multimedia Partners for lot improvements, repairs, and maintenance, and alarm services for the warehouse. Mr. Spears did not undertake to pay for those services that he enjoyed, even after he signed the 2017 lease that expressly allocated those expenses to him. He leased it and made the estate pay for it, for cooking, cruising, and chaos. The chaos being how much money you're taking from your daughter's estate, perhaps. Maybe that's the chaos bit. Advanced Multimedia Partners, just wait for it, is an entity owned by James P. Watson III, husband of Jamie Lynn Spears. Yep, that happened. Fred, not on the mic, please, darling. That happened. That happened. And that's what they've found so far on incomplete financial records. Mr. Spears allowed the estate to incur exorbitant expenses related to the Louisiana residence. The court apparently asked about this. The Louisiana residents from 2009 to 2019 had over $1.5 million in expenses, and the court asked Spears to justify the extraordinarily high expenses of the Louisiana residents. And they're saying that according to court records, Spears evaded the question and responded that the expenses referred to are not for the Louisiana property, but the conservatives' residents in California. And then it seems that everybody just dropped it. It just poof. So another $1.5 million to a house that she doesn't live in. And that's based on the incomplete financial records from TriStar. Poof. Poof. To my knowledge, Mr. Spears failed to provide an explanation for the disproportionately high expenditures. And again, it takes the attorney for Britney's side to go to the court and be like, they didn't answer this. Your Honor, they didn't answer this. They said it's for her house. No work's been done at her house. I asked her. They're not doing the work at her house. But Ingham didn't do that, which is why Rosengart's doing it now. I worry it might be too late to claw back the money that was spent. Financial documentation obtained from TriStar via QuickBooks shows that $178,000 of more than the $1.5 million spent on the Louisiana residence was paid for, you guessed it, Advanced Multimedia Partners, Mr. Spears' son-in-law's company, for professional service fees, repairs, and maintenance. What does Jamie Lynn's husband do? Because he's getting paid by Britney's estate, and that seems sus. And that's the stuff that I have no excuse for. Because that's the stuff where I'm like, of course Britney's mad. Of course Britney's mad. Did Jamie Lynn not know that her dad was paying her husband? It's almost $200,000. Okay. Service fees, repairs, and maintenance, unidentified charges related to this property from 2012 to 2020. Notably, nearly $60,000 of the funds paid to the Senate were paid in 2014, the same years Yeated Spears evaded the court's request for an explanation of the extraordinarily high expenses associated with the property. I mean, what professional services, repairs, and maintenance is Jamie Lynn Spears' husband performing at the Louisiana house that Britney doesn't even live in that has to do with Britney's estate? I just cannot there's no level above red. We're like at DEFCON black. We're at DEFCON like Darth Maul. I don't know. Vader. Who's worse? Palpatine. Emperor. DEFCON Emperor. Gross inequities, you think? In the disposition of Britney's earnings. Kroll forensic analysis and the available financial data has revealed inequities. Oh, shit's wonky. Weird. In the proportion of Miss Spears' earnings that were paid at the direction of Mr. Spears, including to himself, in comparisons with the amounts retained by Mrs. Spears' estate. Hey, we've taken a look, and it seems like Yeated, we're making more money than Britney. We have questions. I'm glad that Agent S has questions because this investigation's not going to stop. The publicly filed first account current shows that Britney's estate paid more than $2.7 million in attorney and other fees on behalf of co-conservators, $400,000 for her court-appointed attorney fees. Ingham got paid. And another $1 million in miscellaneous business expenses that are not itemized. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? To cover these extraordinarily high expenses ostensibly needed to operate the conservatorship, Miss Spears' estate had to borrow more than $3.9 million from pre-existing trust that was held outside of the estate and another $5.7 million from her various entities. They pulled money in from her trust and from her other entities to cover the money to go to James Spears' attorneys and to go to Sam Ingham. There needs to be a stronger word than inequity. Fuckery's not even strong enough. I don't have words for the rage. They took money out of other funds to bring it into the conservatorship to spend. Somebody said DEFCON Death Star. I feel like that's where we're at. And this is stuff I did not know because the first account current, there's nothing that shows where that money came from that I had seen. So I'm just like, oh, I'm just so angry. Like I'm getting hot. I'm so angry. I should turn off my heater. I can feel it. Like I can feel the blood in my cheeks. This is when you, there were times when the judges would look at me and be like, Miss Baker, your face. And I'm like, my rage face. It turns red. I have no poker face. You can tell exactly what I'm thinking. I get red when I am angry and or, drinking. We're not drinking tonight. We're just going water and we're mad. As noted above, Yeated Spears secured for himself a percentage of Britney's earnings on top of the six-figure salary that he was being paid by the estate on a yearly basis. Because he has the financial fortitude to be worth a six-figure salary as a professional conservator, because he has a proven track record of making good choices. So let's pay him six figures to be in charge of the money. Sure, seems reasonable. Based on QuickBooks data obtained from TriStar, which again, Kroll has not been able to independently verify, Mr. Spears profited from his role as conservator in the amount of more than $6 million, which came directly from his daughter's estate, as set forth below. Yeeted Spears Management, and these are the years and these are the amounts paid. 2011, $1.8 million. I imagine that was a tour year. Over $6.3 million. Mr. Spears also approved the expenditure of more than $30 million in fees to be paid by the estate to dozens of firms between 2008 and 2020. $30 million to lawyers. What? Because when I said early on in this, Britney was paying to fight both sides. There's no incentive for anyone to stop the fighting. Britney's paying for her dad's lawyers. Britney's paying for her court-appointed lawyers, and they keep ratcheting up. And then they brought on more lawyers. They're like, oh, we need more lawyers to fight. And they're making work for themselves. It feels like that arms dealer movie where they try to stage a war so they can sell more weapons. So why would they stop fighting? Why would they stop fighting? $30 million in fees. Everyone got rich except for Britney. And you know what? It's not just Britney. It takes away from her kids. As just one example, under the 12th accounting alone, the one that they're fighting over today, and we'll go check Twitter in just a minute as we conclude this. Holland and Knight sought over $1.3 million in fees, $541,000 of which were addressed undefined as media matters. During his tenure as conservative, Mr. Spears used his role as conservator to enrich himself and those loyal or useful to him, often at the expense and against the best interests of his own daughter, whose assets, welfare, and best interests he was supposed to protect. Beyond the financial misconduct, Mr. Spears had actual and apparent conflicts of interest in violation of industry norms and rules governing the conduct of a conservator, which he would have known if he was a professional conservator and not him. He also engaged and directed others to engage in unconscionable violations of Ms. Spears' privacy and civil liberties, which also implicates federal and state criminal violations of law. I declare under penalty of perjury, the foregoing is true and correct. I declare that I think this should continue on with a criminal investigation. I hope that the one thing I know about working in an office that is law enforcement adjacent is that even when you leave, you still got people. And I hope that this investigator has been able to say, hey, I have something that might interest you deeply. And that the FBI starts looking into this. Let's go check out Twitter real quick and see. I see you guys in the comments. And then we will get to some of the interrogatories I think they have loaded. The bulk of the information is in the declaration that we just read. That declaration is interspersed throughout the motion. And then there are some other attachments to the motion. Whatever we don't finish, we will talk about on Friday, but those are the most salient points. $30 million to lawyers, over $6 million to James Spears. They still haven't turned over the financials, and this insinuation and question about what the relationship was between James Spears and Lou Taylor. So let's go to Britney Law Army and see what they have to say. Oh, my lips are getting tired. Okay. Britney Law Army. If you guys don't follow them on Twitter, go follow them on Twitter. They're great. We want to go follow them on Twitter. They do great work. A lot was discussed in court today, and there were fireworks updates incoming. Oh, I don't doubt it. I think the court said people can't go in and out of court because Britney Law Army had a entire working to go in and out of court and bring us updates. They are fantastic and dedicated, and they are also attorneys. And so I trust their interpretations of what happens in court quite a lot. Because again, they are seeing it through lawyer eyes and through Britney fan eyes. Oh, the egg sandwich is from a restaurant called Egg Slut. It's so good. Egg Slut's delicious. Egg Slut's great. If you're ever in LA. So there were fireworks. Of course there was, because that filing dropped on James's attorneys and was on calendar for today. At the onset, we want you to know that Judge Penny explicitly stated today that the conservatorship has been terminated. We knew that. Some of the petitions addressed today were filed prior to the termination and therefore refer to Britney as the conservatee, but don't let that confuse you. Fair. Penny was probably saying that for the greater public, not the lawyers. Penny separated the petitions into 3 groups. 1, items to be handled today. 2, items that have been trailing along for some time. 3, newly filed petitions. Items trailing along include 3 petitions filed for Ingham and his fees, Loeb and Loeb's fee petition, Holland and Knight fee petition, Wiles fee petition, and Montgomery's petition for compensation. Ah! Are those still trailing then? Because those aren't in the items to be handled today. That means the finances aren't done, because items to be handled today should be the 12th accounting. So we'll see what else they tweet out. I'm going to pop to the other one and then pop back, because that is not a ton of information. I don't doubt that there were fireworks. Rosengard has gone in and he's like, I'm done, because this petition is going to trail. I imagine what we're going to see is a lot of stuff is going to trail. You guys said Elizabeth Weimeister at Variety has also tweeted. Okay, let's go look at, we'll just go look at, wait, who did you say? Elizabeth, who I probably follow, but I don't want to go through who I follow. Why is my caps long on? Okay, let's see. Let's see what Variety has to say. We are on a 15-minute break from the courtroom and the hearing. It's been contentious and fiery, with James Spears' attorney accusing Rosengard of planning fake stories with the media. Rosengard stood up and exclaimed, "Lies!" pointing his finger at Jamie's lawyer. Rosengard called Jamie's lawyer, Alex Weingarten, nonsensical and preposterous. This is the attorney, Weingarten's the attorney that is getting, or is asking for, $1,200 an hour. Rosengart called Jamie lawyers Alex Weingarten nonsensical and preposterous and said he should be admonished by the court. His strategy is, when you're on defense, go on offense. Back in court, more to come. Let's see if there's anything else. A source tells me that Jamie Lynn nor her legal team has received Britney's cease and desist letter by the time they saw it in the press. They might not have gotten served yet. That's totally fair. Did Call Her Daddy ever release the second part of that interview? Because I don't know if they did. That interview was on, I think, Call Her Daddy's exclusive to Spotify, so it was on Spotify. I don't know if the second part ever got released. Hold on, let's just Emily, you have a phone, why don't you look at it? I don't know. We can. Let's see if the second part, I wonder if the second part got released, because I saw the first part and the second part was supposed to come out, yesterday? And I don't see a part 2. I wonder if they pulled it after they saw the cease and desist. Did they make any statements about that? I'll have to go look. We've got just a few more minutes, so I'm going to go through and touch the high points, but it seems like all of the lawyer fee petitions based on Britney Law Army's tweets got put over to another day. I'm not surprised. Maybe they addressed the 12th accounting, but if this much back and forth is going on, the court might not have ruled on any of it. So I wonder if Call Her Daddy went back and re-edited a little bit and was like, let's take out a few of these parts. We'll just sneaky peek a little bit of this out. Let's see if I can get this to load, because, why not? Somebody said it'll be released Wednesday. Isn't today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. I have a new podcast out today. If you guys haven't listened to it, if you're interested in the Prince Andrew case, the video was supposed to be up today, but then I went live instead because we needed to talk about this. And after this, I will be live on Natalie Lawyer Chick's channel. If the mods don't mind, would you guys pop that live? Should be populated on YouTube. It's going on in like a half an hour. If you want to pop a link in here so you guys can see, so you guys can hop over there if you want to talk about the Cardi B stuff. Let me pull up. Nope, that's the declaration we just did. Let me see if this pulls up a little bit, and we'll hit some of the high points that don't cover that don't cover what we just went over, because a lot of it comes from that declaration. I'm going to keep Twitter up. Sorry if I sound like I work at an airport. I'm like, Let's see if anything new came up. Let's see. Yes, it did. They tweet. Okay, so Penny separated the petition into 3 groups. The items trailing are the fee petitions. Ingham began arguing that the fee petitions for Ingham, Loeb, and Holland and Knight are intertwined with his objections to Mr. Spears' new attorney fee petitions, and that there is real potential for criminal misconduct on the part of Jamie Spears. No shit, Ingham. Rosengart said the TriStar Discovery issue will be going back on the calendar for another court date. So with the TriStar Discovery issue, they had set it over for another date because it seemed like they were working it out behind the scenes. But there are letters included in this document, the 256-page document, that indicate that that's not going well and TriStar is not turning things over. I'm not surprised that they took it off calendar and were like, please work with us. And then we're like, okay, you're not working with us. Fucking forget it. We'll subpoena everything. We'll force the court to force you to do it. The thing that's so fucked about it is it's costing Britney more money to have to continue to litigate and fight with TriStar. TriStar was her fiduciary. TriStar owes a duty to her, to Britney. If Britney asks you for her financial records, give them to her. She's your client. Do your job. And all of the clients of TriStar should take note. All of them. All of them should be looking at what's going on. The preliminary statement of this talks about everything we know and goes on to say, Mr. Spears is acting faithlessly, elevating his interest above those of his daughter and her estate and his own petition, as his own petition demonstrates. As summarized in the accompanying declaration of Agent S, with substantial expertise and experience investigating and prosecuting federal criminal matters, Mr. Spears has failed to cooperate with this firm's ongoing investigation, failed to produce relevant documents and information in a timely, organized, and professional manner, failed to comply with his discovery obligations or answer basic financial questions, instead choosing obfuscation, which I can never pronounce, and stonewalling. It also bears noting at the outset that Spears' petition is disproportionately disappointingly misleading and in many respects outright deceptive. So they go through and list out the fact that they don't think they have a legal obligation to pay James's legal fees out of Britney's estate. They say in any event, because Mr. Spears has now put his wrongdoing directly at issue, a summary of the wrongdoing is addressed herein. And in ex-FBI special agent's accompanying declaration, which provides that even without discovery, which will very likely reveal more misconduct, in addition to his conflicts of interest, mismanagement, and other misconduct, Yeated Spears' actions implicate federal and state criminal law. Against this backdrop, Mr. Spears has ignominiously, I pronounce things horribly. For those of you that are new, yes, I just do. Suspended conservator of a conservatorship that has been terminated. He now seeks to siphon even more money from his daughter. In addition to being riddled with misstatements of fact and law, his petition is factually and legally meritless. Under the circumstances, his petition is also morally abominable, which I love. They go through the abominability of it. They go through the fact that he owes a duty to the estate, and that includes a duty to turn these things over, that there is outstanding misconduct. This gets through the retrofitted tour bus of cooking, cruising, and chaos. I read this document first before I read the other one, which is why it has my notes all over it, because I was sitting here going, no way, no way, no way, no way. And in some of that, I shared my no ways on Twitter. So if you see my thread from last night, you'll see some of that. So they say that Mr. Spears should already have more than enough resources to pay his new lawyers at the outset. Well, at the very least, as Shine, which is a case, teaches, he waits for the court to review any work rendered and the rates charged for reasonableness and benefit. Sorry, I heard my husband yelling. I was like, why? They go on to say later that if Mr. Spears can't afford his attorneys, he should maybe pick less expensive attorneys. They also talk about something that I saw, and we talked about when we went over Mr. Spears, Yeated Spears's petition. They say that although cloaked in language professing cooperation or adherence to his ongoing fiduciary duties, the petition actually reads as a thinly veiled threat that unless his new counsel is given a blank check to wage war, Mr. Spears will refuse and fail to perform the basic limited tasks that he remains obligated to do, whether or not his petition is granted. The threat that a suspended conservator would disrupt an orderly transition unless his demands are met should actually compel denial of his request for payment of the account, which is exactly what is right. We sat here going the gaslighting of it all. He's like, well, I'll cooperate if this, and I'll cooperate if that, and I'll cooperate if this other thing. It is shocking. They go on to talk about why the case law compels it, and that building the petition after his abusive behavior is not okay. They talk about Britney Spears's kind of record. They talk about the bankruptcy. They talk about the conflict of interest. They talk about Lou Taylor. Let's see now this is loaded. If we can get to that interrogatory. So let me see if we can. Oh, wrong page. Control F yourself on the other page, Emily. Let's see. We've control F'd ourselves down into the interrogatories. Again, these interrogatories and questions are questions. They are propounding of James Spears and others. This is not the right set of interrogatories. No. Oh, here they are. This is the right set of interrogatories. As it loads slowly, these were propounded on James Spears's legal team. Date pending at the bottom of all of this. This is why being a lawyer is so fun. All of this kind of shit. I'm teasing. December 17th, 2021. Let us get into the special interrogatories. Those are the identifications. We need to get to the denials. So this is asking for documents for admissions or denials. Admit that you had knowledge that a listening or recording device was placed in Britney Spears' home or bedroom. So these are going to play out in a deposition if and when it comes to that. But now that they've played their hand that there's going to probably be a criminal investigation, he might try to plead the fifth when they go to a deposition, which would be wild, but it wouldn't be unexpected. It wouldn't be unexpected. But this is the one that people are talking about. Admit that when you were the conservator of the estate, you had a romantic relationship with Lou Taylor. That is the one that people were like, what? Admit that when you were conservator for the estate, you approved on behalf of the estate of Britney Jean Spears a payout of $80,000 to TriStar for accounting services. On and on and on with asking about what the relationship was TriStar. This is not going to end quickly. These investigations are going to take time. These investigations are going to be thorough, but just know that with this, these are questions and allegations. These are not statements of fact, but this would show a deeper and sometimes maybe it gives us the understanding, but this shows a deeper malfeasance in this conservatorship if the interest of Lou Taylor and TriStar are being elevated above Britney Spears. And it's clear that their financial interests were being elevated above the financial interest of Britney Spears, which is exactly what you don't do and can't do in a conservatorship. I think that we can very realistically see criminal investigation, particularly with those recordings and the evidence that's come forward with regard to the recordings, because there's no reason to not to. You have the evidence there. It's a pretty cut and dry law. It's like, did you do this? Yep, that's illegal. It's not hard. So let's go back to Twitter before I have to bounce and do another live stream. Let's see, where did we end off? Ingham began arguing that the fee petitions for Ingham, Loeb and Loeb was the law firm that worked with Ingham as their litigation counsel, because it's like, oh, we're still fighting. We need more lawyers. And Holland and Knight are intertwined to the objections of Mr. Spears' new attorney's fees and that there's a real potential for criminal misconduct. Shock. Rosengart said that the TriStar discovery issue will be going back on the calendar for a future date. Rosengart requested an evidentiary hearing on the accounting. I think they should have one, and I think that's going to be amazing. If there's an evidentiary hearing on the accounting, I will fly out for the accounting. I want to hear it. Rosengart said that Yeated Spears was reading Britney Spears' therapy notes despite her prior attorney warning him that he had no right to do so. And in the motion that we have not completed yet, it says in the motion that there were emails showing that his counsel was saying, you're not entitled to these. You don't have the right to these. And some of that was talked about in what we went over tonight as well. Rosengart wants to fold the accounting and fee petitions into one evidentiary hearing. Rosengart wants to ask a lot of questions. Weil, this is Geraldine Weil, the one who said, no, he's not recording. Weil made a verbal motion to strike any statements by Rosengart today as without personal knowledge and asked the court to limit his statements to only those he has personal knowledge of. Ooh, Weil doesn't like what he's saying on the record at all. Viv seems to have accepted the inevitable and didn't put up a fight. Instead, she agreed that the parties needed to get into discovery and take some depositions. Viv knows where this is going. Weingarten complained that he received 27 media inquiries last night about Rosengart's recently filed objections before he got his copy in the mail. Wah! Sorry, I should be more empathetic. I'm not. Look, those were stamped from the court. Let's pull up when they were stamped from the court. I'm sure he did get media inquiries. They say a whole lot. Those filings say a lot. Let's see when they were stamped. These were stamped January 14th, which says to me that maybe Rosengart didn't email them and actually snail mailed them, but they went up on the court website yesterday. What a bummer, which is why these are getting put over. So it's not like the entire I can't say the entire conservatorship. It's not like for a large portion of the conservatorship that Spears didn't do that. Remember when he filed, but maybe didn't file and maybe gave to the media the petition to terminate the conservatorship to be like, Britney's daddy loves her. Look, I'm filing to terminate the conservatorship. And all the lawyers out there were like, wait, stop right now. Thank you very much. But there is some fuckery going on, and he's only filing this because he's trying to move away from all of these investigations. James Spears wanted this conservatorship terminated so that all of his attorney-client privileged emails wouldn't get turned over to Rosengart. That didn't happen. Rosengart's entitled to everything. Rosengart is going to get everything, and this is going to continue on. And I think what we've seen from Britney's statements on social media is that she is fucking done. She will not be bullied. She will not sit down, and she is going to go after everyone involved in this. And, I understand. And while I've said I'm empathetic to Jamie Lynn in part, because there are parts, it doesn't excuse her behavior, but she grew up with these parents too. And I can understand the rage. Does Britney know that her estate was paying money to Jamie Lynn's husband and now her name's being used to sell a book? No wonder she's mad. And I'm empathetic to, I believe Britney, and I know why she's mad now. I am not going to say what Jamie Lynn did at 12 is yes or no. She was a kid. But from the time she's been an adult, we've got to look at her actions now. And especially her actions since June. She heard everything that happened in June, even if she didn't know, which she would have known because she grew up with these people and she could have extrapolated what that would be like. But she heard what her sister said in June. Everyone did. And so at some point, maybe say, no, I'm not doing the book. I don't care. Violate the contract. Okay, Lou Taylor, violate the contract. I want to know what Jamie Lynn thinks of these questions about whether or not Lou Taylor and her dad were having an affair. I'm curious as to what Lou Taylor's husband thinks. Again, allegations. These are questions that are asked at interrogatories. It could be denied, and it's like, no, that is a denial. That didn't happen. Okay, there's more. And then we're going to do this for a few more minutes and then we're going to go. I wish I could get to questions. Friday night's going to be long, I'm sure. Weingarten complained that he got 27 media inquiries. Hey, media, I'll take 27 media inquiries. My email's listed on Twitter. I'm happy to answer your questions. Hi. Haven't you seen me on ABC? No, I'm teasing. Weingarten complained that he received 27 media inquiries last night about Rosengart's recently filed objections before he got his copy in the mail. Weingarten, quote, all of Rosengart's objections are nonsense, demonstrably false, or taken out of context. Well, y'all, we read through the declaration. We read the declaration. I don't think everything's taken out of context. And the objections are that the law says you can't do that. Weingarten accused Rosengart of leaking sealed information to the press and then made a motion to unseal the entire case file. That doesn't make any sense. And the thing that was leaked, the things that were leaked to the press, particularly the reports that the New York Times had, I believe predated Rosengart coming onto this case. Rosengart, I'm compelled to respond to the lies told by Weingarten. He knows he's lying. God, I wouldn't want to be one of James Spears' attorneys. Never, ever, 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 ever. Rosengart, Weingarten didn't say anything in his speech about whether James Spears had any knowledge of electronic surveillance of my client. Right, because I bet you Weingarten's not going to answer that. Let's reload and see if there's more. Come on, Twitter, don't let me down. Ooh, I've got to scoot. I'm sorry that I have to scoot. Thank you. And a huge thank you to the mods for the extra ride tonight. You guys follow Britney Law Army over on Twitter. I'm sure the mods will share the link to the live stream where I'm going to be. Let me just pull it up on YouTube and show you. I'll share the link too. I'm going to be over on Natalie Lawyer Chick's channel. She is a fantastic attorney. We always have great conversations. I love her channel. She does a lot of like reacts to court videos and things. We are going to talk about the Tasha K. Cardi B stuff tonight. So this is her channel over at Natalie Lawyer Chick. This is the live that is going to be live soon. Let me share this. Let me share this with you in here. So if you guys want to pop over there, you can and come watch. If you're watching in the replay crew, you can come watch then. I love my conversations with Natalie. She's great. She's great. So that's where I will be in just a few minutes because the Cardi B Tasha K defamation suit is in trial. I will be breaking down the rest of this information on Friday during my regularly scheduled Friday Night Live. I'm sure I'll share some on social because I'm going to cover what went down in court today too. I know you guys will read that on Britney Law Army, but I'll give my take and I'll give an update on what's coming next at the next court dates because there's going to be multiple future court dates, I am sure. Thank you for being a law nerd. For those of you that liked and subscribed, thank you for liking and subscribing. Wow, this is a lot. It's going to be interesting when the criminal cases go down, won't it? It's going to be a busy week. It's a busy week. And it's a busy week in Housewives too. Y'all, there's so much law. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. Like and subscribe on the way out. And then if you haven't followed me on the socials, it'd sure be great if you did that. At the Emily D. Baker on the social medias. Thank you to the mods for the extra ride. I will see everybody Friday night at 7 p.m. Central for Friday Night Live. Stay hydrated. Take care of yourself. Fred, what are you doing? Fred says goodnight. Fred says, Mom, it's time to go. We got to go. And I will be talking about questions. Yes, Ashley, I will do an Instagram question box. I will. I'll do it tomorrow. So I still have them. So thank you. Thank you. For everyone who super chatted tonight, I will get to those early on Friday. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your support of me and this channel. I don't know what I said, but YouTube's already like, I don't know if we can monetize this. We have to review you. We're not sure about what you're saying over there, Emily. What I'm saying is this is some fuckery, YouTube. I saw it in the legal documents. Have a great night. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye, law nerds.
Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.